I don't believe that we as husbands have learned to unconditionally love our wives as Christ has loved the church and have given himself for her.
And as wives, we haven't learned to unconditionally respect our husbands, and I think part of the reason we haven't learned it is because we haven't been taught that this is God's secret ingredient for marriage. Now, this is something that Harv and I certainly did not understand when we were first married, but over the past 10 to 12 years, as we've begun to understand the power of unconditional love and respect, we're beginning to realize that the love and respect connection has everything to do with a healthy marriage.
You see, without love and respect, marriage is what we're going to call a crazy cycle. The first circle up here behind us. And here's what I mean by this. In fact, you guys all understand what we're talking. It's kind of this back and forth banter of, well, if she won't, then I'm not going to do that. And if she won't apologize, then I guess we'll just live in a world of silence. And I don't care if he's mad at me for the rest of his life. He can get glad in the same pants he got mad at. You know? I'm not going to give in and I'm not going to give up. You see, without the language of love and respect, arguments are just the norm in marriage, and marriage becomes reactive rather than interactive. It becomes like this hamster wheel that we can't get off of. You know, he's so unloving, she's so disrespectful, he is so stinking unloving, she is so stinking disrespectful. And back and forth, the cycle continues. Now, Edith and I told you we are going to be very transparent with you today. I hope that you see that with us as a couple. We're going to just share with you one of the crazy cycles that we can get stuck on if we're not careful, okay? So, picture this. I'm home. Silence. Hey, I'm home. Where's everybody at? No answer. So I walk into the kitchen, and it's clean, and the dishwasher is running, and there's a plate of cold food sitting on the counter. So I go upstairs, and Edith's busy putting away the laundry, and I say, hey, how was your day? Silence. Dead silence. And then I ask the stupid question, is something wrong? And Edith just looks at me and kind of rolls her eyes. And then as I look closer, I can tell she's been crying, so I say, what's the problem? And Edith blurts out,
the problem is that you said you'd be home between 5 and 6, and it is 8 o'clock. Now, Mackenzie and I waited an hour. You're still not, you weren't here, so we went ahead at 8. Then Kylie dropped by because she said you texted her that you would be home at 6. You weren't there.
Getting icy up here. And then I say, I'm really sorry, unexpected things happened at the church. You know, people stop by, and you know how it is in ministry.
I know you're sorry. I know you're always sorry, but Harv, you have time for everybody else. You don't have time for your family.
Well, what would you have me do about this?
Well, you could call and let me know that you're going to be home at 8 instead of 5 or 6.
No comments from the peanut gallery. I'm sorry, I love everyone unconditionally.
By the way, did you remember the book you were supposed to bring from the church? I'm working with the kids tomorrow.
I'm sorry, with the 70 million things, I just forgot it. You know what, I'll go back to the church and get it.
Oh, no, forget it, forget it. I know that you're sorry, but Harv, you know, I asked you to do one thing. I do everything else around the house. I don't understand why you couldn't just do one thing. Come on, don't you ever think about me? I feel like you don't care about me. I feel like you don't love me.
When she says that, I stand there, about to say something, but then I realize that if I do say something, I will regret it later. Oh boy, will I regret it. So in my mind, I do the best thing that I know how to do. I do what feels honorable to me. I simply walk out of the room. And as I walk out of the room, I think to myself, I'm just trying to be a good pastor. I'm doing my best to be a good provider and a good father and a good husband. Why does she have to treat me with such disrespect? Why does she have to treat me with such contempt? You know, I've worked all day. This has been a 12-hour day, and I've done all this to provide for her and for the family.
And as Hard walks out of the room, I'm thinking, I'm just trying to tell him how I felt. I'm just trying to communicate how overwhelmed I feel sometimes. I wasn't trying to criticize him. I wasn't trying to tear him down. Sometimes I feel ignored. Sometimes I feel alone. I feel like I'm having to fend for myself here.
That was a wee bit melodramatic. But as you can tell, there's some real life there. I think most of us can identify with this crazy cycle of he doesn't love me, she doesn't respect me. Well, I want to try to put some perspective into this for all of us this morning. So Edith, if you can get your gear here. This is a picture aid, okay? Husbands, I want you to get this in your mind. Did you know that your wife sees the world through pink glasses and pink earphones? And everything she says and does and thinks and hears is strained through her pink female perspective of the world simply because she is a woman.
Now, I'd love to keep these on, but I can't read what I'm supposed to do next. So. Wives, did you know that husbands see the world through blue glasses and blue earplugs, and everything he says and does and thinks is strained through his blue male perspective of the world, simply because he's a man? And here's the thing, neither one of these perspectives are right or wrong.
They're just
different.
And because we don't see things or hear things or process even things the same way, it goes without saying we have different needs. We are just wired differently. Now think of it this way. God commands us as husbands to unconditionally love our wives because our wife's greatest need is love. And husbands, when we don't love our wives, it's like we are effectively cutting off their oxygen. We are stepping on their air hose. Because just like they need air to breathe, they need love for marriage to make sense.
Same concept is true for men. The reason that God asks us wives to respect our husbands unconditionally is because our husband's greatest need is respect. And when we don't respect our husbands, it's just like we're cutting off their oxygen. We're stepping on their air hose because just like they need air to breathe, they need respect for marriage to make sense.
I know that this idea of love and respect, it might sound foreign. It might even feel weird to you. And here's why, and I really want you to get me. For me, this has been the aha in all of this. Our society would try to teach us that everyone has the right to expect love. But respect, on the other hand, respect is something I think you're going to have to earn. But husbands and wives, I want you to hear me. According to God's holy word, this is not true. According to God's holy word, this is not true. Now watch this, okay? I really believe that the reason why God told us thick-headed men to love our wives unconditionally is because it is not as natural for me to love unconditionally as it is for Edith. I want to tell you, on the scale of loving unconditionally, you know, Edith easily gets a 90. I probably have a 2 down here, you know? And I think that that's kind of true. And so the Bible says, hey, husbands, going to just nudge you here. Remember to love your wives unconditionally. But let's take the flip side of the coin. I don't think that respect and honor is quite as normal for women as it is men. Think about the military. Think about the way that men tend to speak to one another with honor and respect. And so God is gently nudging the woman and saying, hey, you got the love thing down, but you're going to have to work at unconditionally respecting your husband because this just isn't quite natural for you. Now, some of you are thinking, Harv, you are trying to convince us of something that you want us to believe. Well, check out these stats.
They asked 400 men this question. If you are forced to choose one of the following, which would you prefer to endure? Letter A, to be left alone and unloved in the world, or B, to feel inadequate and disrespected by everyone. Now, 74% of the men chose letter A, that they would rather be alone and unloved than disrespected. Now, another question they asked was, in the middle of conflict with my wife, I am more likely to be feeling A, that my wife doesn't respect me now, or B, that my wife doesn't love me right now. 81.5% of the men chose letter A, which means in the middle of conflict, what men need most is not to be loved, but to be respected.
Before I move on to this next section, I want to keep coming back to this sidebar. All of this talk on love and respect is presupposing that there is goodwill between the man and woman. Okay? I know some of you have probably come through marriages where there wasn't goodwill. I'm not talking down to you. This is when there is goodwill. Honey, I want you to win. Sweetheart, I want you to win. Okay? So please keep all of that in perspective. About 12 years ago, I was at probably one of the first big crossroads in my life. And I was really kind of struggling with the call to ministry. I kind of felt like God was calling me and saying, Harv, I want you to go preach. And I was going, but God, music's so easy for me. And I was kind of going back and forth and kind of in turmoil. Well, I just needed to talk to my wife one day, and so I called her, and I expressed to her how I was feeling and just kind of the turmoil. And Edith, boy, this is one of those lines in my life. Edith very calmly stopped me, and she said to me, Harv, I want you to know something. She said, you are my pastor. She said, you are my spiritual leader. You are the person that I look to for guidance in my life. She said, I live with you 24/7, and I know that you walk with God. When Edith said that, I probably put the phone down and wept for about 30 minutes. But when she said that, I want to tell you, I felt incredible. Her words of respect to me shot adrenaline into my veins. I felt like I was 10 foot tall. I felt like I could leap buildings with a single bound. You know, it was like I felt like I could do anything. But wives, you know what else I felt? I felt overwhelming feelings of love well up. It was like, I don't think at that point in my life I had ever felt that much love for my wife. It just gushed out of me, and I couldn't wait to get home to share with my wonderful wife. Ladies, if we have failed to preach this, then let me say to you today, I am sorry. But you need to know this. Respect does something to the soul of a man, like nothing else. Respect does something deep to the soul of a man, not because we're arrogant, but because God made us this way. God wired us this way. Respect is the most important word in our love language. And now that Edith and I have begun to come to some terms with this love and respect idea, you know how she's taken it? And I eat it up. On my birthday cards, on my Father's Day cards, on our anniversary cards, and the little notes she leaves me here and there, you know what she puts? She puts, Harv, you are a good man. You are a respectful father. You're an attentive father. You are a good provider. I love you and I respect you more than any man that I know.
And wives, you need to know that when you show your husband some respect, you can get away with just about anything. And it will for sure earn you a few more trips to the mall, I promise. Respect really goes a long way with a man. Before Harv and I understood how different we were, and before we were introduced to the language of love and respect, we spent our share of time on the crazy cycle of just reacting to one another because of the lack of love and respect that we were experiencing in our marriage. Without love and respect, marriage is a crazy cycle, and no one wins.